Welcome to Life Design Diaries, the podcast that gives you permission to design your best life. We are married, entrepreneurs, and traveling the world all at the same time. And this podcast is designed to share our experience and lessons learned so that you can apply them to the lifestyle and the life that you want to design for yourself, whatever that may be. And in this episode, we wanted to give a bit of a travel update. We are quickly progressing through Asia. We're recording this now from Sri Lanka. 6 months into our traveling the world experience, and really just wanted to kind of give an update as to what's happened in the last month in our life and really what life is like for us traveling the world and trying to juggle working at the same time for ourselves. And that leads us into a conversation, which is our topic of the week, around stress and how we deal with stress, how we sometimes feel stressed, how we support each other when each other feels stressed. And so we kind of really delve into the topic of stress and give our thoughts on it. Actually, just sharing our thoughts on it, I think helped a lot because, the topic had been very front of mind for us, especially with things that have happened recently in the news, which we come on to. So I hope you really enjoy this episode. Let's get into it. Okay, so we're recording this from our hotel that we booked direct for the first time, actually, without using Airbnb or Booking.com. Bit of a travel hack there.
Yeah, we got it for a bargain.
It was good. You can actually negotiate local prices. And in Sri Lanka, everything is negotiable. We phoned up and they were quoting us a price which was, I think it was like 2 to 3 times what we eventually paid. So. Yeah. If you're definitely coming to Sri Lanka or just, I guess, anywhere abroad, you can always pretty much negotiate.
Yeah, so we left Chaing Mai after doing a full 30 days there. We thought we might do 3 weeks and then move on, but really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed the people and the places that you could work. It's a really, really lovely place.
I think it's easy. It's very easy to live. If you're like a digital nomad, there's a big community there and there's so many coffee shops. And really what we look for whilst we're sort of traveling around is nice accommodation and a good coffee shop and a few restaurants. And we're kind of set, aren't we?
Yeah. It was really nice. And, kind of an hour outside of the city in any direction, you fall into like the most beautiful countryside. We did one trip where we went up into one of the, I think there's like only 10 or 20 in the world, cloud rainforest. Cloud rainforest isn't right, is it? Cloud forest. But basically it's just like an underwater forest. You go up there and it's unbelievable. It was amazing, wasn't it? All the moss.
Wait, it's not underwater. It looks like it's underwater.
It looks like it's underwater. It looks like seaweed. Yeah. The forest. It's amazing. If you're near a cloud forest, head over there. So we are in Sri Lanka. We moved from Negombo, which is where you generally fly into, the main airport, which is on the west coast in the middle. It's about an hour north from Colombo, which is their capital. So we took a taxi rather than, we kind of cheated. Everybody gets on the buses or the trains, but there's big strikes at the moment. So we ended up getting a taxi with good old Jude, who actually kept nodding off, which was, a bit hairy at some points.
Yeah, it seems like whenever we've taken a long distance taxi, we've at about 2 hours in, we've had to play the game of keep talking to the driver just to keep him awake.
We can see his eyes fucking nodding off. Anyway, so we took the 5 hour, it was a little bit longer than that in the end, wasn't it? About 5.5 hour drive across the country through some incredible national parks, past lakes, past rice paddies. We saw so much wildlife, didn't we? Wild elephants, which was pretty amazing to see.
Literally
buffalo.
Right by the road, weren't they? The wild elephants.
Yeah, it was amazing. Really, really, really pleased to see. We saw loads. So got a really good insight into what Sri Lanka looks like. Very green, very lush, very, very tropical. And we arrived in Trincomalee, which is a little bit higher up on the east coast, which is kind of quiet town, loads and loads of history here. Very, very important place around the wars and stuff they've had here. So yeah, we arrived yesterday into this lovely hotel, which we decided to book because it's our first year wedding anniversary on Saturday. So, and we're recording this on...
Depends when you're listening to this.
Thursday, yeah. So on the 9th. So yeah, we thought we'd check in after kind of a rough couple of weeks.
Well, an interesting couple, yeah. I would say challenging couple of weeks. Yeah. We booked our Airbnb in Chiang Mai, which is Thailand, for anyone that doesn't know. And we booked there for 3 weeks. So we had a week left before we were flying out of the country. And everyone has kept telling us that we need to stay in a hostel for the experience, to meet new people.
And I was hell against staying in a hostel. Just thought, I'm too old. You know, I like my own space. I don't want to share a shower with anybody else. I certainly don't want to share a bedroom with anybody else. Incredibly uptight point of view before, well, in the first couple of months that we were traveling.
How did you find it?
Yeah, it was okay. I mean, so I definitely come around to the idea. I think the longer that we're traveling, the more laid back we are getting. So yeah, we ended up checking into a hostel for a week.
I think some people listening to this will be like, yeah, and
I know. When we checked in though, the guys on reception were like, so you're staying with us for a week? I don't know that is usual. I don't know. Who knows? But anyway, we checked into a very nice hostel, sorry. It's called, it's a chain, Hostel by Bed. And it's kind of like a hotel cross with a hostel. So it's really nice. It is bunk beds and stuff in a shared room and shared bathrooms, but they are double beds and they're like little cabins. So you do have an element of privacy. And it was all right, really, wasn't it? Very comfortable, incredibly clean. No space to have your own space. One day we did washing and there was Ross's boxes hanging everywhere around the hostel. But anyway, So yeah, we've had a bit of and we did that because we wanted to experience it, but also save a bit of cash. Because last month was a bit tricky. We had to put down quite a heavy amount of savings as we added another property, which is great in the long run, but when you're traveling and starting up businesses.
Yeah, I mean, buying a property anywhere is just a long, difficult process. But buying it on the road whilst you're trying to juggle everything as well.
Whilst you're both just
out of the country. It's really hard to do things like that out of the country.
So yeah, so we kind of, and I mean, these are all we've done all of this to ourselves. So we've only got ourselves to blame, given us all of this pressure and stress. But it's kind of been a bit of a tough couple of weeks. Yes, staying in the hostel, not having the space. Obviously, we're not really used to that. And then we decided to move across to Sri Lanka. And the first couple of days here was a bit of a shock to the system again, wasn't it? It was just so alien. We arrived, had no idea what we were doing, where we were going. We just wanted to kind of ride it out, didn't we? And see how we felt when we got here, and we didn't feel too great.
Why not?
Well, I don't know. It was just all a bit of a shock to the system. We stayed in an awful place.
We stayed in one of those places where the pictures were taken 10 years ago. And like it looks stunning, and then you go to the place and you can see where the pictures were taken, but things have changed in that time.
Like the roof has fallen in, like the bed sheets weren't clean, the drains were blocked. It was an experience. Again, it's amazing what a little bit of comfort brings you. But
it's definitely one of I would say one of the biggest sacrifices with travel, isn't it? You haven't got your home comfort, so
yeah. And I mean, again, we took a few minutes to just kind of like have a bit of a reality check, and it wasn't particularly uncomfortable, and we were a bit stressed out with stuff, but it's nothing that we haven't felt before. And we just kind of like realized that any situation that you're put in, like, you can handle it. It's nothing that you haven't dealt with before, and things do get better. So even if we're staying in a not a particularly nice place, and I don't have lots of my comforts or things on my back, you know, we are traveling incredibly light, that you can handle it and it's fine. And it is fine. And, you know, we were really stressed a couple of weeks ago about whether the house was going to go through, and now we've got that, and now we've just got another stress. So it's almost like, don't waste your energy on the stress.
Yeah, I mean, from the conversation we had the other day, I think the important thing to remember is that there's always another, like everything just evolves, doesn't it, throughout time? And so there's always another thing. Like at a given point in time, a very big issue that we're working on could be like a focal point, or, you know, an element of stress, or it's just taking up a lot of our energy. And then if you look at that 3 weeks later, or 1 week later, or a month later, that's now done. And there's another thing.
And you're on to the next thing.
And there's another thing. So you just kind of build on top of these things, and it grows. And like you said, okay, we were the challenge of, first of all, was buying a property, you know, if we're just talking about this example. And then it was, okay, how do we get the mortgage for it? And then it was, how do we get it to completion? And now we're looking at it saying, okay, well, now it's done. How do we find a tenant? Like there's always another thing. And so if you understand that, it's important to just try not to get too stressed with that.
Yeah.
Enjoy it. If you understand that there's always just another thing, it just becomes the way, the path, the sort of, you know, how it is. And so,
yeah, I think for me, it's quite interesting to think nothing is ever that dramatic. Like if you looked at a timeline of your life and the things that you've had to deal with, I mean, obviously there is some real bad stuff like your health or losing someone that you love. We're not talking about that. We're just talking about stressful situations, but with work or life in general. But if you kind of plotted them and how you felt at each one of those points, I don't actually think anyone is more dramatic. You just move on from it, and then the next thing. Your level of stress is always quite relative, isn't it? You know, when I was at school and I was dealing with my A-levels, that wasn't as stressful or as important as it is as the stuff that we're dealing with now, but I feel the same.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
So like once you realise that, I think this week or the last couple of days, once I've thought, actually, just stop wasting your energy worrying about
on negative
X, Y,
stuff.
Z.
Yeah. And like,
well, I was just going to say, because 3 days ago we were sat in a cafe looking at flights home, because we had like really reached a point where we were just really tired. I wasn't very well. And we were just like, could see no end, really, could we? On the phone to Qatar, trying to change our flights that we've already got booked for the end of July. I mean, it's quite funny, really, but we were ready to jack it all in,
yeah,
weren't
but
we?
how glad that we didn't.
Yeah, definitely.
I think there's always a point when you could feel like that in any new thing that you're doing. It's like, is this right? And it becomes a point where like the novelty of starting it kind of wears off a little bit. And then it's like doubting, is it the right thing to do? And for us at the moment, we're traveling, but we're trying to work so hard on, you know, finding the balance on working on our own stuff. So it's kind of like, are we just, you know, wasting time in traveling and stuff like that? That's why we were looking at flights home. But I just think it's so good to push through that and continue doing what you're doing. I'm glad that we're here now. You know, record this from Sri Lanka.
Yeah, and we've had a nice last 2 days, haven't we?
Yeah, and where are we? Talk about, you know, what.
Yeah, so we've checked into this hotel. It's really small, lovely little pool. We just had breakfast overlooking this amazing scenery of this lake. We are on
Palm
the coast.
trees.
Yeah. So on to the right of us is the beach, and to the left of us is this beautiful lake. Yeah, so huge, glorious palm trees, beautiful cows everywhere. Like, you know, they're really gorgeous, like golden brown cows. And it's lovely. The temperature is gorgeous. It's amazing, the two sides of the country. So one side is rainy, which is where we've just come from. This side is the dry season now. So we're really looking forward to, we're going to get a motorbike and get around and see some of the nice beaches and go swimming with some sharks and turtles and stuff. So Yeah, I mean, now that we're feeling a little bit better. Yeah, exactly. Now we're feeling a bit more settled, I suppose, in our own minds. We sat down and basically went through all of how we're going to manage the next couple of months. And that's made everything just a little bit more practical, hasn't it? We're not so emotional about everything. We did start this podcast 3 times. Why was that, Ross?
Yeah, well, I mean, our setup has changed every single time. We've always got a little stand of 3 books and Lucy's handbag to get the microphone up to the right level. And it's always difficult to find a relatively quiet place. So at the moment, it's like ridiculously windy in here. There's a lady that's cleaning outside, like
watering the grass.
But the added thing, which is just on top of all of this, in every location, and particularly happened this morning, is mosquitoes. We've killed like 3 or 4 mosquitoes as we've tried to like record this.
Ross goes into this weird like stealth mode to try and track them down. We've had quite a few 4 a.m. wake up. Well, I have had quite a few 4 a.m. wake up calls where Ross has jumped out of bed, put all the bloody lights on to try.
Well, it's weird for me because as we've travelled, we've seen and gotten used to so many insects, like
cockroaches,
like just cockroaches and spiders and everything. Whereas for some reason, I've like developed like a fear of mosquitoes or something, or just like an instant reaction. It's just when they fly past you at night, right past your ear. Maybe it's just they fly past me, not you.
Yeah, well,
it happens every night.
I don't know. You must be tastier than me because I never ever hear them. Ever. So yeah, that's an interesting one. I don't think you'll miss the mosquitoes, will you, when we go back to the UK?
No, I'm not quite looking forward to that, actually. It's definitely presents its challenges in trying to get some good quality audio down for this podcast.
It's quite funny to watch, though.
So, I mean, the main lesson that I've taken from, like, we talk about the last few weeks being challenging and at some points thinking about stopping and stuff. The main thing for me is about the importance of consistency and focus, really, and just continuing on. I think, as I said before, there'll always be a point when whatever you're doing feels like, should you do that? And everyone asks themselves those questions, don't they? It's like, am I doing this right? Is this right? Should I be doing this like this? But I think some way, somehow, you just need to find the strength to like continue, because when you then get going again, you can find the next level of momentum.
Yeah, and I guess that's the difference between like something being good and something being really, really good or really great.
Yeah, and I hear a lot about like the difference between success and failure is just pushing on once more, doing one more rep, that sort of thing, about getting to the point of failure where most people fail, most people stop, but then you keep going. I think that, and I really believe that. I feel like that is, the kind of mindset you need to have to progress, really, is just to push on. Because I guess the other option is that you just start things and then stop them. So it's not really an option if you analyze it, is it?
Yeah. But do you think, like, this is quite a good question for you, really. Do you think that like, we've got quite a lot going on at the moment. And do you think that you have to have a real element of passion for what you're doing? Like a real ache and desire and interest in the topic to get you through that last bit? Do you have to really love it?
Yeah, I think so. I really think so. And I've learnt that more in the last couple of years than ever. Because of course, it's, conventional advice that if you're going to do something on your own, you should really love it. But it really is, because when you face that time of stuff going wrong, I feel like that's kind of the difference that allows you to keep going, is whether it's something you love. And like I've started things that were just kind of more analytical. They weren't coming from a true passion. They've come from like, oh, this looks good. That market looks good. I think this will sell. Let's do that.
Kind of like,
and it's kind of like a short-term view. Yeah, it's like a short-term view. And so I feel like that practice of getting started taught me a lot, because I kind of learned loads, which then on the next, product I bought out or something, it it was a lot quicker. So the process was still good. So I would say, just kind of a caveat, if anyone's like, well, what the hell am I passionate about? Which is, I was going through that for ages, is, well, what am I passionate about? How can I wait for this kind of huge passion? I would definitely advise to get started on anything, as I've kind of said in previous podcasts, because you learn, and then you're just waiting and building up your knowledge until that passion comes across. And could I even say now that I've absolutely found my passion? I'm not sure. It's just a real difficult one to answer. What we're doing now, this podcast is really interesting. It meets a lot of new people. And I'm very passionate about spreading kind of the lessons that I've learned and that we've learned. And I think that's helpful. So that's great. And that allows us to continue throughout the times when we might say, okay, is this right? Is this stopping? Interestingly, I heard that most podcasts fail between episode 7 and episode 15. So if you look at iTunes, and it's true, if you look at iTunes now and you search loads of podcasts, there's loads that haven't made it to episode 15 yet. Because that, it takes effort. It takes effort and consistency and focus to continue on, because, in the first 5, you might be really excited, and anyone can do that. But coming back to like one more rep, pushing on when most people fail. If a lot of people fail at episode 10 and 15, well, what happens if you continue past that? And if you're passionate about doing it, if it's about something that you want to do, it absolutely, I think that's a kind of a core essential thing that it is bred from passion.
Mm-hmm. What have you done, like exercises or things before to try and establish like what things do really get you going?
Oh, it's so tough. Years ago, I did a whole kind of, you read blogs and things and they're like, well, list out on a piece of paper the things you love and the things you don't love. And if anyone who's listening to this is also searching for their passion, I'm sure you've probably tried something like this, like, oh, what do I like? What do I don't like? And trying to like spot trends. It's interesting. I think, keeping a note of things is good. So like different ideas that fall into your head or different things you're thinking about, that's quite good to, if I look back on my previous notes, there has been trends about content or, thoughts and putting it out to the world in some format. That kind of advice, thoughts, sharing knowledge has filtered through in some of my old notes. And I think when I look back at them now, I can understand how that led us to this podcast, because, it's kind of what's been there. So I do think documenting what you're doing to yourself, helps spot trends.
Yeah. And you're so good at keeping a note of that. I mean, we were on the plane coming over from Kuala Lumpur to here, and Ross was listening to episode 1 of this podcast, weren't you?
Yeah.
I haven't actually asked you what you thought about it, or whether you have any thoughts about it.
No, I only listened to the start. I just listened to the start because it's really weird for anyone that's got a podcast listening. It's like, you record an episode, you briefly edit it, make sure it's okay, the sound quality is good. When you put it out to the world, you kind of forget what you said. So you get loads of people coming back saying, oh, I really like this bit in episode 4 or something. And you're like, well, what did I even say?
Yeah.
It's so, I was just kind of refreshing. And also it's really interesting to see how even over, this is episode, I think 14 or 15.
Oh, so we're at crunch time then.
We're at crunch time. Yeah. It's changed loads, and I'm kind of trying to keep a track in my own mind of how it's moved and changed, because it's just a great example of how I think businesses change. You kind of start out with a concept, and then the key thing at that point is to start with that concept and not overanalyze it. And then as you get feedback, we've had loads of feedback from people every single week talking about what bits they like, what bits they don't like, and we're always open for more feedback. So, please get in touch with us. But it changes, it moves. You think, well, actually, maybe I could do this bit better. Maybe I could do that. Maybe we should go this direction. And so it just kind of leads you in different paths. So I was just kind of reflecting on that. Hence why I was listening to episode 1. So on the topic of stress, I want to ask you, Lucy, how do you think that we or anyone deals with stress when they're like wanting to improve, all the pressures of society on their shoulders, wanting to get ahead? How do you deal with stress?
Okay. Well, I think first of all, you need to understand the difference between what stress actually is and just a bit of pressure or a bit of hard work or a bit of being uncomfortable. I think stress is, the most severe of all of that.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with being a bit uncomfortable and stuff because it pushes you on, like we're saying, we've had to do a few uncomfortable things over the last couple of weeks.
That's true, though. I think stress is used very commonly, isn't it? Mm-hmm. But it not necessarily is stress.
Yeah, definitely. And I think if you're working on something that is causing you stress, at physical stress where it's affecting your health and your happiness, you need to have a real long internal look around how you're managing the situation, or whether what you're doing to cause you stress is enough. Is the compensation for that stress going to be high enough? I mean, I was just reading an article in The Guardian about poor Kate Spade, the very, very famous designer from the States that took her life yesterday at the age of 55. She sold her company, Kate Spade, a couple of years ago for the second time for £2.4 billion. I mean, that is a phenomenal sum of money. She ran the business with her husband and her sister, who gave quite a candid interview, said she felt that the stress and the pressure from the brand had kind of flicked the switch in her mind and, unfortunately lost the battle with depression and having this bipolar disorder because she prioritized the brand and the stress, I suppose, of dealing with Kate Spade as a brand in front of her health. And I think that your health and your happiness is the most valuable thing in the entire world. So why would you let anything impact that?
Yeah, but how, do you think it's difficult, I think, because, have you been stressed?
I think the last couple of weeks I've really, I don't know, I don't think I've been stressed. It's been testing, yeah, and I've been really looking at the output and the stuff that we've got going on and that I've got going on and what benefit that's given me. I felt like we've been working so incredibly hard, and every day I think we just got to a point last week, or I got to a point last week where I was so tired, wasn't feeling well. We kind of needed to go back and look at our budget sheet and things like that, and it was just all a bit uncertain. So yeah, to a point I think I was a bit stressed, more uncomfortable. But there's some things like I really like to take 5 minutes to not necessarily meditate, I count.
Right.
So whether it's like in the moment, so maybe sat in the back of a taxi, or before I go to bed, I like to breathe in really deep to 7 counts, hold it, and then breathe out for 4. And that really, there's something about those numbers. I can't remember who told me about it.
Where did you learn that?
I don't know, probably yoga or something. There's something about those numbers, that amount of numbers, and breathing right down to the point where your tummy is popping out. That just gets the blood going, oxygen in your blood, and you just feel a lot better and just calms everything down. So that's something that I've been doing just to really try and rationalize how I've, not being emotional about things, like everything is okay. And the other thing is like really, really being in the moment. So there's one real poignant evening last week where we were driving from one place to another. And I remember thinking like that I shouldn't be in a rush to get home. I should just really enjoy this moment in time. I was in a really nice in a really nice car. I was in a car, it didn't smell, there was nice air conditioning, I was in the back with you, we had all of our stuff with us, and I was thinking like, in a couple of months, I could be sat in the UK, it might be freezing cold, I might have lost my bag coming home from the long flight, just really trying to appreciate and be really, really grateful for every single moment in time. And I think that has helped me definitely just be a bit more rational, not up and down. Because I think a lot of the stuff that we've had to deal with over this whole journey, really. I
was going to say, it's just travel. You keep saying about last month or stuff, but I think a lot of this is just the uncertain path of travel. There's a hell of a lot of lessons and experiences that you have that are different, that are testing, that are new, aren't they? Yeah,
and just kind of taking everything with a pinch of salt in like a moment of time. So, like if you might have fallen out with a friend or whatever, don't go too far with your thinking around, oh my God, they're not speaking to me, because circumstances change, and in the next couple of months you might fall back into flow with one another. Or I think though that sort of thinking, as long as you're happy and you're healthy, or as long as you're kind of healthy and you're in the moment, just enjoy that, because that's like all you have. That kind of way of thinking is just becoming more and more habitual for me, because I would have struggled with that 6 months ago or a year ago even. And it's one of the things that I vowed to Ross in my actual wedding vows, was to think more like that, because Ross is very good at being very in the moment, very pragmatic, not too up and down. And I think that makes for a very, very steady, level person. So I've been really, really trying to practice
Practicing
that.
Your vows.
Yeah, I've been practicing. No, I have. I took them very seriously.
I know you did. This is good. Well, one thing has always stayed with me is that I read that life is lived inside your own head, and that's always stayed with me, because no matter what happens, it's always how you perceive anything. Like, two people can look at the same thing and one person can get mad and one person could be happy. Two people could stay in the same room and one person could think it's a shithole, one person think it's lovely, like depending on their background and their own circumstance and their perception. So it's all about how, it's lived with inside your own head, and how, regardless of kind of what happens externally, you have the choice to choose how you behave and how you react to that and how you perceive that.
Yeah, totally. That is everything, like in a nutshell. This week's review comes from Lisa O2 Dolly. She says, absolutely loving your podcast, guys. I love the honesty in the topics you are discussing, not just about your businesses, but your personal lives as well. And I can't wait to hear more. You are both very inspiring, real, down-to-earth people. Please keep your podcasts coming. Awesome. Thank you very much, Lisa. We really, really appreciate your lovely, lovely words. So if anybody else is enjoying the podcast or wants to give us any feedback, please head over to iTunes and leave us a review. It really, really helps us grow our podcast and keep them coming. So to round up on a bit more of a positive note, we have got a month left in Sri Lanka. We're then going to head to the south of Thailand to do some of the islands and Bangkok. We're going to fly back to the UK for some very exciting weddings from India. So we're really looking forward to spending not too long in India. We're going to spend about 10 days a week there. We hope you guys take some positives from our tricky couple of weeks. We're really looking forward to getting to know this country and spending some time on the beach. And if anybody is looking for a brand new one-bed flat in Manchester, please let us know. See you next time.